Now, before moving on to our featured guest, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator today, Peyton Marshall. Peyton served in a number of executive roles in the financial services, biopharmaceuticals, healthcare IT, and B2B sales and marketing software spaces. As CEO of Leverage Point, he has worked with a number of world-class companies to adjust their product management, marketing, and sales challenges. So with that, Peyton, welcome.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Sorry for the glitch. So one of our themes at Leverage Point is that value selling increases sales velocity by simultaneously driving improvements in the 4 levers of the sales velocity formula. 2, increase qualified opportunities, improve average deal value, increase win rates, and reduce the length of sales cycles. At Leverage Point, we're committed to great organizations who improve their sales performance through value selling, going beyond features to customer outcomes measured financially. Among the best of those great organizations is Fiserv, a $10 billion global provider of financial services technology, perennially named to Fortune's list of the world's most admired companies. As we've worked with Fiserv and others, we've learned that the secret sauce of a successful value selling effort is to have one or more sales mobilizers. But what makes a great mobilizer? Great mobilizers have a strong understanding of both the organization's solutions and its customers. Great mobilizers need to have credibility with sales. Account managers, sales reps, and solution consultants should feel comfortable involving mobilizers as they work through customer problems and improve customer presentations. Finally, great mobilizers realize that effective value selling is a team sport, that supporting better value selling across the organization is the best way to run up the score. Today, we're very pleased to have Rick Cantril from Fiserv share his experiences in mobilizing value selling. As you will hear today, Rick is not just great. Objectively, by any standards, Rick is a terrific mobilizer. With a strong background in business and pricing strategy, Rick has helped the Fiserv team deliver outstanding results, working with 1,500 team members to infuse value into their mindset across sales, finance, pricing, product, and marketing professionals. The Fiserv Value Program has helped drive $1.5 billion in revenue across 1,300 relationship opportunities. Today, Rick will focus on how they have driven value selling in their multi-year journey at Fiserv. Welcome, Rick.
Well, thank you, Peyton, and I really appreciate the opportunity to meet with this group and share some of the experiences that we've had at Fiserv deploying Leverage Point and more generally the value proposition strategy. And, you know, as I was thinking about what things would be important to someone starting for the first time, someone building a value strategy program within their organization for the first time, or if I were to take our concept that we've deployed now on an enterprise level to a new business unit, if we were to acquire another organization, there are really 3 stages that come to mind as the essential steps that you would take in terms of developing the maturity of a value strategy program. First, you've got to launch the program. Then you've got to build the momentum and get more of the organization or more of the business unit involved. And finally, you reach a point where it's really fun and you're sustaining that performance, and you go to more of the maintenance activities, but then also have a roadmap of areas to improve over time. That's kind of been the recipe for success that we've had in our organization for about the past 7 years or so. Now, within each of these stages, what I want to share with you are some of the key elements to success, or the key elements that we've learned, and hopefully that will give you some insights that will save you some time from some of the lessons that we learned early on, and some of the key decisions that we made that really made this program successful for us. I'm also going to highlight a few of the steps as areas where we broke from maybe the orthodox way of doing things. And I think that's really important to articulate and emphasize, is that There's probably a ton of management best practices, academia out there, change management, organizational management, and there are some areas where we deviated from that slightly. And kind of the backbone, I think, for the majority of our program has been positive organizational behavior psychology. And so that's an easy area to go and reference. And I think, if you spend a little time researching some of the best practices in that area, you'll see that there are many parallels to what I'm going to share with you here today. Okay, so in the beginning, when we identified that, gosh, value strategy, value proposition, driving superior value for our customers, that's something that we find is a key element of our organizational culture, of our aspiration and purpose that we have in the market. And, we had really good cellists, we had really good violinists, viola players, bassoons, timpani, all of them were, fantastic in what they do in their own individual business units, whether it's a solution or some other component of our value proposition. But there was something missing. And we felt we needed the equivalent of a conductor to bring our value proposition together. And so the reason why we selected Leverage Point, many years ago, I should say two reasons why we selected Leverage Point, were we felt we needed to have central visibility to what it was that we were all collectively doing to create value for our customers, to build our value proposition. We had a lot of disparate groups or disparate individuals in some cases that had components of what made us successful, but we wanted something to centralize that, to bring it all together and foster collaboration. And if you've ever seen a Leverage Point demo, I think you'll recognize immediately huge potential for that collaboration. And the second element, or the second criteria that we were really looking for, was the ability to democratize value within the organization. It didn't matter if you were a summer intern or the CEO of one of our business units. We wanted anyone in the organization to be able to see that value in one centralized location. And so, to get the program started, like many organizations, probably when they start a new concept or a new opportunity, we had a pilot program. And I liken our pilot to prospecting, not prospecting in the sales sense, but in the very literal sense. I'm a Midwestern guy. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, but I actually am from the panhandle of Nebraska, the people who, settled the Midwest, so to speak. And, this idea of prospecting is really interesting to me because I think oftentimes when we bring in a new concept or a new technology, we're looking for just a few little flakes of something valuable to be able to take back to our senior leaders. And we were extremely surprised when we found one heck of a nugget to share with our internal teams that really became, as I'll describe in a moment, the battle cry for why value strategy and why Leverage Point were important within our organization. So in our pilot, we took one of our solutions. We worked with our product experts and our sales and pre-sales experts to prepare a quantified value proposition. And that's really, if you're not familiar with the Leverage Point technology, that's the key to what this system provides you as a client. And once we had this quantified value proposition, kind of bringing in those best practices from positive organizational behavior psychology and evidence-based management, we wanted to have both internal and external validity. So we sat around a table with our subject matter experts from different, what would have been silos, departments, and we got everyone's expertise in one room at the same time to sign off and say, you know what, this is the perfect view of what it is that our solution does to make our clients more money, to save our clients more money, or develop some sort of economic advantage, like reduced risk exposure or driving retention or customer acquisition. And after we had that internal validity test, we took it to an existing customer. That was our external validity test. And this was really the capstone, if you will, of the pilot program. And I remember I met with this client. This client had been with our organization for several decades at this point, since really the inception of our organization. And this particular individual, the decision maker who we were getting the feedback from, had been with us and been with her particular institution for that same amount of time, at least that amount of time, if not longer. And when we sat down with her and we basically made the case, if you were to select us again, if we were to show you these elements of our value proposition, would they still be relevant today? Does this make sense? Are you seeing these benefits out of our solution? And I don't remember how long this meeting was, probably an hour-long meeting, but I didn't get much farther than 10 minutes into the conversation when she let out kind of a shriek. And I was concerned for my clients. I asked her, is everything okay? I thought something had happened, where she was at. And she kind of left me with a quote that, as I mentioned earlier, became the battle cry for our program in the early days. And she said, I am so impressed that you are really living up to your commitment to your clients when you say that you want to be a real strategic partner. I've never seen Fiserv act like a strategic partner in this way before, and it really excites me, because if you can get me this same material, and then she listed off 3 or 4 additional solutions, I can take this to my CFO and my CEO, and I can get some key investments that I've wanted to make for a long time, but I don't have the expertise to build these business cases. And that was very powerful. And like I said, we use that as the battle cry for this program. We still use it today. That this is an operation, a function in our business that allows us to become a real strategic partner for our clients and their end users, their consumers, and their members. So I mentioned, there's some key elements, right, to this idea of initiating a program. And the first thing that comes to mind is you have to start with something. I think that's the real temptation, is to start running before you can even walk, and certainly before you need to crawl before you can walk. And you have to have content. That's one of the key things that we made some significant investments early in the program that allowed us to maintain momentum as we went. We never had more bridge laid than we were going to travel. You can really overstep your supply lines very quickly if you don't have that content. And so we partnered with our product management organization early on and started building out rudimentary value propositions. And after we had that content, we then went to our sales organization to excite them. Hey, this is something new. Your customers, your clients have probably been asking you for this, and maybe you've never seen this before internally. Is this something that would be of value to you? And, we certainly got their feedback as well as we were meeting with them and incorporating that back into our model creation process. And then the key when you introduce this to the sales organization is really to identify who are those early movers going to be. Who are those folks who are going to really pick up this new opportunity and run with it? Who wants to go use this with a client tomorrow, kind of a thing? And I mentioned, in the beginning of the presentation that I wanted to highlight a couple moments where we deviated, probably from what is maybe not best practice, but what's general, maybe not even general knowledge, but just general practice. I think we all too often fall into some trappings. And one of the things we could have done at this point was just kind of toss it over the wall, right? I played my piece on the tuba, so I'm going to pass it over the flutes, or the flautist gets done, and oh gosh, I'm going to pass that over to the violin section. We could have easily done that with this content, but I think it's not that I'm more intelligent than any average person. I think it was probably by accident, really, that during one of our training sessions, I could see the fear and the panic in the sales organization as we showed them some of this complex financial analysis that we had done within a value prop. And having to pick that up for the first time ever and then walk into a significant opportunity where your livelihood and your family's livelihood is on the line in terms of commissions and other incentives that the sales organization has. And when I recognized that, we decided, you know what, there's something else that's missing from this program. We need to provide a wingman or a wingwoman with our sales organization. And that was a key deviation from how we probably traditionally would have done things within our organization. And we set our salespeople up with for success by giving them a dedicated wing person to help them out in opportunities, and had a lot of success doing that as they were able to collaborate in these meetings with our clients. Skip ahead here. Another key element is recording your customer feedback and their reactions and being able to share that with the organization. There's nothing more exciting or empowering than hearing from your actual customers, your actual end users, and what they think of something new that you're trying in your organization. Really celebrate those success stories. And this is probably another area that I want to highlight, is that it's far too easy to just do your job, do your program responsibilities. If you take the approach of a program manager or a project manager, it's easy just to check the box or to send things up chain that, oh gosh, we've completed X, Y, and Z, but you really miss an opportunity. It's so much more powerful when you recognize individuals who are taking a risk on your new concept, or the teams that are taking time out of their daily work to try this new approach. And it's also very interesting how simple that recognition and thanks and praise can be. I'm not suggesting anything more sophisticated than maybe an email copying the person's manager or the person's direct leadership chain. That is so powerful in terms of reinforcing the positive behaviors that you want to see people replicate. And it's amazing how that catches on like a fire within a team, within a business unit, when one individual's recognized, how others want to aspire to achieve that same recognition. And this last element here of working like a strike team, I think it's an interesting concept. We got it once we were kind of in the late part of the launch or initiation stage. We got to a point where we did have teams of folks who had never really worked with each other necessarily directly, but all worked together in air quotes, meaning a product manager building a product that then shares that product with the pre-sales team or the business development team that then trains the sales organization that then counts on the implementation and support teams to actually deliver that solution set to the client. And maybe marketing and finance and other shared services are wrapped around kind of as some ganglion thing, right? Supporting as needed. We changed the paradigm a little bit in that it wasn't so sequential. You do your job, then you pass it to the next person that does their job, so on and so forth. We brought these teams together as more of a strike team in a collaborative setting. And in the early days, and our organization is a global organization, we have to rely a lot on virtual technology. And I think everyone is kind of in that same boat today. But in the early days, we did have a few co-located teams where we could physically bring them into the same room. And eventually we made the investments to have folks travel to some central location where we could physically bring them in the same environment and sit down, in some cases, really working with each other for the first time, although they had air quotes, worked together for maybe 5 to 10 years. This was the first time, in some cases, where they collectively put their energy together and worked like a true strike team around whatever their mission happened to be, whatever their value proposition happened to be. So let me recap kind of this initiation stage with a simple example of kind of the cradle to grave, how we've done this in the past. And I think this is a very powerful example. This kind of replaced our pilot case study in terms of inspiring our organization. So early on, after we had gotten some of these solutions built into a library, we had some initial power users trained and excited. The sales team was getting ready to use the tool in some opportunities. I might have overstepped myself a little bit and gotten the sales organization a little too excited. And one of our executives in the sales organization called me up and met with my team and had said, you know what, your stuff is so powerful, it's so interesting, I'm so excited about it. I've got a perfect place for you to test it. I'm thinking, oh gosh, free throw, right? An easy opportunity to test our new approach. Well, the free throw went something like this. We've got this long-term client. They're very critical to one particular business unit. They've been a long-term relationship for our organization as a whole. Very powerful. Their board members are part of our board. There's some really strong relationships there. And this particular client has sent us written notice that they're not renewing. And that's just a devastating thing to hear within our organization. We are very proud of our long-term relationships that we build with our clients, and delivering superior value is so integral to why we exist and why all of our associates get up every single day. It's something that we're all very, very proud of. So to hear that, it's just devastating, especially when I heard the name of, who this particular client was. And this particular sales executive kind of thought that, I don't know, we got kind of the reputation of being wizards and we could just magically make things work. And I think that's kind of what this person was anticipating, is that we could just wave a magic wand and everything is going to be great. And certainly on that call, I mean, we were all smiles and imbued a sense of confidence. But I think this picture here sums it all up. That's probably an accurate representation of how I looked probably 2 or 3 minutes after the call. And I think the most challenging thing in this particular case was that we had made some mistakes with this particular client. We had some service issues with this particular client. And that's not necessarily something that you can solve with just a fancy financial analysis. But we aimed to do that anyway. And so our team got together. We utilized the leverage point tool set. We quantified the value of a number of things that would be different if this client were to switch to, it really didn't matter which competitor, but the competitors that they were looking at the time. What are some of the things that would be foundationally different about their strategy, about the solutions that they had invested in, and about the direction that they were trying to take as an organization. And we met with them. We showed them the financial analysis, and we quickly followed that up with a new operational plan that showed our commitments of how they were going to see the value that they expected from our relationship. And, I remember coming out of the meeting thinking, well, gosh, that feels so good, but this situation is just so ridiculously challenging. I wonder how that went. And I didn't have to wait too long. And sales cycles in our organization are rather long, particularly renewal decisions, large investments of any kind of significance take anywhere from 12 to 18 months on average. 2 months after we had made our kind of final argument, right, our closing argument, we get a handwritten letter to some of our senior leaders, and I didn't even get a physical copy. I got a photo representation that was sent to me in email. This client had sent a very detailed letter about why they felt our organization was the best strategic partner for them and that they were going to go all in. So we went from losing the business to actually increasing their investment by 50%. And I remember coming home that day and I just threw off my tie and sat on my chair and I was in shock. I could not believe it. You know, I knew we had something powerful going with this program. There's something very powerful about this concept of value, especially because we could sign the checks or deliver on the checks that were signed. However that phrase goes. We put our money where our mouth was. We could actually deliver the value that we were saying that we could generate, and we were just communicating it differently with our long-term relationships. But I could not believe that we turned around this relationship and inspired them so much to increase their investment with us. And if nothing else, I think this story, this was in the very early days, when we were just launching the program, I think this is one of the most powerful case studies of why value proposition, value analysis, value strategy, value selling is so important to organizations, particularly if they're looking to create differentiated value for the markets that they serve. So just to recap, how to launch a good program. What are probably the biggest things that I want to emphasize? Just to reiterate, it's building relationships, programs, change management, even value analysis doesn't go anywhere if you don't invest in people, if you don't invest in those that you're working with. That is so critical to making this successful. So don't underestimate that, as well as recognizing and just a simple thank you to the people who are taking a risk to join you in your initiatives. That's so important that you recognize those who are really making you successful. And you'll be surprised if you deliver to your internal customers the way that you hope to deliver to your external customers, they'll drive the program for you. And we'll talk a little bit about that next, in the next phase, which is how do you ramp up your program? How do you start capitalizing on some momentum and really accelerate the results that we talked about earlier, kind of in the individual sense? One of the things that we feel that it really is critical at this next stage in your maturity is developing training and education programs. It's one of the things I think no one in business wants to admit that they don't know something, or that they are missing some skills, or that maybe the way that they've done things in the past could be better, or they're not really aligned to value, particularly if they're pursuing a value strategy. So having some really low commitment, low intensity, and kind of basic training that's not intimidating is so critical. And that's one of the things that we invested heavily in this kind of ramp up stage, where we started building training documents, and we would have all kinds of introductory 101 sessions. And eventually got to the point where we would have weekly kind of Bob Ross style, hey, let's learn this new thing today, and aren't these happy trees, and all that wonderful stuff. And we'd actually show some simple concepts on a weekly basis with our internal teams, so they could pick up on this stuff at their leisure whenever they wanted to. And eventually, we'll talk about this a little bit later, eventually we built some more sophisticated training and certification programs. But launching training internally in multiple media is so important. Like I mentioned before, we had training documents, we had training sessions that were live, we had training sessions that were virtual, we had recordings that were self-service that you could go in and watch. We designed a number of very short tutorial videos that allowed you to learn a value proposition in 15 minutes or less. That was kind of our goal, or our mantra was, hey, we can teach you this in 15 minutes or less. As you can probably tell from this presentation so far, I really struggled with that, but my team, I have a fantastic team. They are so amazing, and they are far more brief than I am and more articulate, and definitely helped us get to 15 minutes or less. We also expanded our library. working with the product team to create kind of a cookie cutter approach to building a value prop was really important. And one of the things I think that will really excite you when you do see Leverage Point, if you haven't seen that already, it's built to be very paint by numbers, follow the steps. And we rolled that out to, our teams to get to where we could really scale this very quickly. And eventually, after we did have that content, we would incorporate actual client performance. As the years went on, we could take actual client performance against what we thought it would be within our business cases, our value props, and we were able to take those success stories, that client performance, and feed back into our value modeling process. I mentioned, those areas that I really want to highlight where we differentiated probably from best practice. Democratizing the information in our value propositions and the tool itself was extremely critical to being able to ramp up the program. And I think that that's something that's sometimes counterintuitive. Oh gosh, this is highly confidential intellectual property. We can't let this fall into the wrong hands. We certainly could have taken, we could have gone that direction. And I think we would have stalled almost immediately. One of the biggest learnings that I've had, the most powerful thing that I've learned about scaling the program is getting everyone involved, every level of the organization. Anyone in our organization should be able to articulate the value proposition of our solutions. And if they can't, because we have a very complex organization, a lot of solutions, they should at least be able to articulate the value proposition of the solutions within their area of expertise. If they're in payments, or if they're in digital channels, or if they're in account processing, they should be able to articulate what it is they do and why that matters. And so we definitely incorporated elements of, in fact, you'll see in Leverage Point, you can have different role types. For the most part, we don't really have different role types. We allow a lot of collaboration, a lot of visibility at all levels. And finally, getting your senior leadership team to recognize what it is you're doing and to build kind of the culturation of value within the environment, whether it's a business unit or a department, or if you're a smaller organization, maybe the whole organization. Getting that leadership support to really make you legit is really important at the ramp up period. And oftentimes, if you share those success stories, if you share the performance you've already generated, the leaders are more than happy, to give you their stamp of approval and to further excite their teams. And this kind of brings me to another kind of case study, another learning that we had, and that was this concept of building a champion. So how do you not exhaust the resources of your core team? You might be a small department that's trying to deploy this to your organization. You might be several departments, wherever the case may be. You might sit in finance, you might sit in product, you might sit in sales or sales support. It doesn't really matter. However you're bringing this into your organization. Building champions can really help you scale very quickly. And in our experience, or in my personal experience, I had to deploy to a number of different business units in a very short period of time. And again, I didn't really think about this necessarily, come up with this idea on my own. It kind of just spontaneously happened. But I had an individual in one of our business units that was very interested in the concept of value analysis. He was in a different function. I sit within finance today. He sat within pre-sales or business development. And he wanted to learn more. He wanted to be a part of, this program. And he really wouldn't take no for an answer. That's not to say that we told him no, but he really wanted to be super involved. He wanted to know everything, just like another member of our team. So we sat him down and we trained him as though he were a member of our team. And he even flew out to little old Lincoln, Nebraska for a few days, and we worked on how he could build this program within his business unit. And then, we followed up with him. We watched him over time. We ensured he had the right tools. We ensured he had training material to share with his business unit, that we were getting him recognition from the leadership team to support the work he was doing. And, only a few years later, interestingly enough, he had built one heck of a program within his business unit that now represents about 5% of our total program. And that might seem small, but again, as Peyton mentioned at the beginning, our program is 1,500 users across 5 continents. It's a huge program. His organization represents 5% of that and drives about 3 times, so about 15% of the overall financial results that we get through this program. So investing in those champion relationships can be really critical in terms of moving your program forward and scaling. You know, if I would give you a couple of key takeaways, probably the biggest one is, I think and this is kind of one of those things I want to highlight is different from maybe conventional wisdom. I think the temptation is that you're going to launch a program. You know, if you've learned any Six Sigma process, you want that process to be as fine-tuned as possible. You want people following, you know, the way that you're doing things. The temptation is you're going to want a bunch of clones. And what I found is the most successful programs empower people to independently build their own identity. They might do it slightly differently than you would. They might not understand the entire gospel truth of all of the academic studies that you can bring, particularly if you're an expert in pricing or value analysis. If you have, you know, fancy certifications like I do from Wharton, they're not going to know all that stuff. But if they are directionally correct and they're actively building that culture of value, you can go really, really far with your champions. Okay, so the last stage, how do you sustain, you know, this value selling program? You know, I'd love to tell you that I have all the answers here, but we're just now really maturing to this phase of a successful program where we can maintain and incrementally get better. But there are a couple of things that we've already identified that really make you successful or aid in the program. And the first is adding quality checks. You'll notice in Leverage Point, there's the ability to add reviewers. And this is something that we take very, very seriously now that we're in this kind of final, you know, quote unquote, again, final stage of maturity. Bringing in your subject matter experts in different functional areas. For us, it's product management, finance, and sales, to look at the quality of your value propositions and to identify areas where we need to improve. Either collect more competitive intelligence, maybe better analyze or better quantify the value proposition. Perhaps we need to get more customer data. You know, having that review component is really critical. And it kind of leads into number 2, which is where you can enhance the quality. For us, the biggest opportunity in enhancing quality is taking a lot of things that might be more in the theoretical realm where we started because we wanted to get content, we wanted to get to market very quickly. And now that we've got the luxury of having that foundation, we can go back and track customer performance, do more analysis around what are our real client averages in certain areas of the value prop, you know, risk reduction, customer acquisition, customer retention, productivity gain, you know, so on and so forth. We're able to now go put client actuals back into our models. Building an infrastructure to track your performance. You know, for us, we've got a number of different systems where we've built dashboards to be able to track what is it about opportunities where we use Leverage Point that doesn't exist in opportunities where we don't. Because we still have a very much a dichotomous organization where we haven't scaled. We don't have 100% adoption yet of this approach. We've actually got very small relative to the total opportunity we have, very small, you know, adoption. But even so, as Peyton kind of mentioned at the beginning, the financial results have been almost incomprehensible, phenomenally huge to our organization. So understanding what's different about Leverage Point opportunities than non-Leverage Point opportunities and how you can excite more people to shift to the Leverage Point process becomes a critical part of this last stage of maturity. Getting feedback from your sales organization is always important throughout the whole process, but I think at this later stage, it then helps you to identify areas where you can make additional enhancements, you know, where you can improve, make some additional investments in terms of changing your models. Taking your content to maybe customer events. You know, in our organization, we have a large national conference that we attend, or I shouldn't say we attend, we host every year. I think I mentioned earlier that our sales organization has iPads that we've deployed Leverage Point to, and they can sit down in a kind of ad hoc, comfortable setting and share our value propositions in real time. I mentioned earlier that we've built certification programs. Now that we're in the mature stage, we've really ramped up our training to where we've got intense certification programs for product, sales, and finance associates, where we really take a deep dive into how value analysis, economic value estimation, economic value analysis, how they can apply that to the function of finance or the function of product or sales. And it goes one step further than maybe the initial training that they received. We've created Champions Council. And the role of this Champions Council, which is made up of a number of our power users, is to provide our core team with feedback as to what we need to continue to invest in, where we can improve, where we should go next. And finally, having, again, that C-level visibility, the senior level visibility to continue to promote the program. For me, I owe so much to our previous CFO, Jeff Yabuki, who is kind of in the stages of retirement now and has passed the reins on to our new CEO, Frank. Jeff was critical to this whole entire approach. I owe so much to him for, if nothing else, giving me quotes to share with the organization about how this approach, how our tool sets here were so well aligned to where we were going as an organization. The C-level can be a very powerful, inspirational tool that you can use. Very quickly here, what I want to share a quick case study that we use, towards the end, or that we're actively working through now. We noticed a lot of our analysis was very reactive. We had cost analysis. We might have had some sporadic competitive analysis, things like that. But one of the elements that was really missing was this element of value. And now that we're in the mature stage, we have a ton of data where we've taken Leverage Point into opportunities, where we've won, what that means for our business. There's just a new element that we've brought to our analysis process. And that new element is value. Making pricing decisions, for example, not just based on competition or cost, but this new value. And what does this new lens tell us? Now, I'm not suggesting you replace all of your traditional things with value. I'm suggesting that it's a key element that you can bring to the decision-making table that you're missing. And for us, this has led to completely different decisions than maybe we would have made without this value element. And it does. It allows you to, and I should have mentioned this a moment ago, but it allows you to update your product life cycle, or I should say your solution life cycle, as well as to adjust how you make revenue. So to kind of sum up this maturity stage, what are the key, most important things once you get to a mature program? I'd really say it's maintaining the recognition and reinforcement within the program, as well as building more sophisticated data tracking that allows you to take advantage of insights, from this new area where you can collect data, this new value element. Okay, so a few final thoughts, and then we'll go to Q&A, and I'm sure there are a number of questions already populating in the queue, but if not, now's the time, or if you want to ask a question, please do shoot those over to us. But if I could give you, 3 reasons why Leverage Point. Now, why, Rick, should I take on, I'm a product manager today. I'm not a change agent. I'm not a program manager. I'm not a project manager. Why should I take this risk? I would say organizations should invest in this because nobody knows your solution's value proposition better than your organization. For us, we're primarily in the B2B space, and we put too much onus on our customers, our clients, to build business cases about our products and services with being blind to performance data that we have or competitive intelligence data that we have that we can easily share with them. So nobody knows that information more than you do, and communicating that is so important. So you leave nothing to chance. Information today is so much more accessible. It's so much more ubiquitous than it was. And maybe I'm a millennial, maybe I'm Gen Y, whatever. I'm a younger professional. When I was in school, the internet had just started. But even so, and then having access to information back then, it is completely different. It's a completely new world. I look at my youngest brother, who's about a decade younger than I am. He lives in a completely different world than I do, even, which is crazy to me. Information is so ubiquitous now, and I put information in air quotes there because it's not all accurate. Information is not fact. Information is not evidence. Information is not true necessarily, as I think everyone on this phone is probably chuckling. They pay any attention to our society in general. And so, I think what's important is for you to take the helm and to take a proactive approach to sharing your performance with the market. That is so important because your customers, your clients, will be doing their own research. It's better for you to show them the best side of you than to leave that to chance where they might pick up something from a competitor that's not accurate. And generally speaking, customers, clients, consumers, small businesses, large businesses, invest in areas where they can get superior value. And if you can demonstrate your superior value proposition, you'll have a tremendous amount of success. And it's so much better than the dreaded race to the bottom. Nobody wins in the race to the bottom. There's really only one winner. And if you think that's a particular competitor in your industry, you didn't get the tongue-in-cheek joke that I have here. There's only one winner in the race to the bottom, and that's the really cheap customer, because they laugh all the way to the bank that they were able to destroy an industry and commoditize a product. Like I said, the vast majority of customers aren't cost buyers. They're value buyers. They're relationship buyers. They'll invest more to get more. I think that's one of the key aspects of our economy in the United States. I think we have a very blessed economy to be a part of, and if you're certainly selling in the United States, I think that value proposition can be extremely effective. So just to summarize here, if I leave you with a couple quotes on each of these things, initiating, value selling, you really are the owner. If I put myself in your shoes, and if I were to give you some advice, kind of in passing here as we're wrapping up here, what are the key elements? If you were to go get started, why should I do this? Why should I take the risk? Well, you're really the owner. As the mobilizer, you own this program. You're the CEO of your program. The buck stops with you, and that can lead to so many opportunities for you internally to drive this program, particularly if you do it right and you have those successful outcomes. But take ownership of it. Don't leave things open to chance. Challenge structural or functional norms to launch this program. And then as we kind of ramped up, we were talking about the ramp up piece. Democratize those tools. Make this, even though you own it, you might have a core team, make it accessible to everyone in your organization. You'll be so much more successful if you empower people and if you teach people to fish than if you try and strong arm it and do it yourself. And ultimately, I think where you want to get to, if you're like me, I didn't always wake up every day saying, gosh, I want to be a change agent, I want to be a champion here. Eventually, you want to be able to hang up your cape. You want to be able to say, okay, I'm the subject matter expert, and people come to me with questions, and I can solve higher level problems. I don't want to be doing the everyday launch of a program. Guess what? That's very achievable with a software like Leverage Point. And now, after 7 years of really driving this through our organization, I can confidently say that I'm at a point where I'm not having to do as much of the convincing and the initiating. I'm now solving those key problems that I set out to solve, from the very beginning, which is extremely exciting. All right, well, I'm going to turn it back over to Nick and Peyton for our question and answer session here. But thank you all so much for attending this session. Really appreciate it. If there's anything I can ever do, if you've got a quick question you want to shoot me, by all means, feel free to shoot me a note on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to share an opinion with you.
Great. Well, thanks, Rick. Nick, are you with us?
Yep, I'm right here.
Okay.
So well, thank you everyone for taking the time to enter your questions. There's still plenty of time, and a quick reminder to complete the 10-second survey while exiting today's webinar, and you'll be entered to win a copy of Dollarizing Differentiation Value. So Peyton, would you like to pick the first question out of the list?
Sure. Sure, and I'll tell you that there are more questions than we have time for, and I think that's a testament to Rick's presentation. You painted a beautiful image for us of a shriek of joy above the orchestral music of a value proposition. I would imagine not all customer meetings are like that one. So it'd be interesting for you to pick a tougher customer meeting, and some of the challenges that you might have faced early on and what you learned.
Yeah, I'm glad that came up, because you are going to have those days, and if you've ever done any kind of change management stuff, you know exactly what I'm referring to when I say those days. I can remember. It's almost scarring, really. I mean, it's probably PTSD about it. But I remember one, supposed to be another layup kind of conversation with the customer, and so much so to where this is one of the rare opportunities where they flew me out to meet with the executive team at one of our clients. Again, that was actually, I didn't even know at the time that they were upset about anything. Supposedly, this was a great client, great opportunity. They're so excited to learn about the value prop. And I think the first comment that came to me was, before I even was able to go into anything, gosh, your stock price rises so much at your organization. I think that means that we should get a piece of that. Where's our discount? And that was, probably the most positive comment out of that entire conversation. I think it's important to understand a couple things. And this is what I share with my sales team. In negotiation, even your best friends are not your friends. And if you work within an industry that uses consultants, and ours is an industry that has consultants, their sole purpose is to beat you up and to drive down price, and to make it seem like your product is a commodity. What I think Leverage Point allows you to do, even if you're going to have a negative meeting, is to go into it with the facts, to go into it with a quantified value proposition, to go into it with data. And there have been many times where clients or prospects don't agree with the value proposition, and that's fine. In fact, if you're trying to manipulate the system, maybe you want it to seem like there's no value, but that doesn't mean that there's no value. You've just made the case. Here's why we asked you to make the investment in our relationship that we're asking. Here's our justification. Now, they don't have to accept it, but they don't have to, build a relationship with you either. They might not have the right strategy aligned to what it is you drive. But I think, what Leverage Point gives you, like I said, it gives you that confidence to where when you are getting beat up, and everybody's been in that situation, right? Where you're wearing my video didn't work today, or you'd see I'm in a nice sport jacket and everything, where you get, the pit stains, and it, it's not fun, and you feel like, gosh, I'd rather be anywhere than here. I feel like in an oven that's 500 degrees. Nobody likes that. But what Leverage Point does is it gives you a tool. It gives you a buddy. It's almost its own wingman to it in of itself. And it allows you to get through those difficult conversations where you can continue to move back to the fact and try and avoid some of the emotion.
Great. So next question. It really relates to getting salespeople beyond the training. What's the hardest thing for a first-time sales presenter of value to actually do it? How do you help them over their reluctance to use value in a conversation without you there?
That's a great question. One of the things that we incorporate into our training program are experiential learning and vicarious learning. So we do things very similar to this presentation, where we have some of our power users talk about examples that are relevant to those that they're training. But then in the training, we also make it a little bit more immersive, where they take a product or service that they are currently pitching to clients or prospects, and we have them do a dry run with one of those power users, one of our subject matter experts, so they get a sense of how the cadence works. And then ultimately, what we have done is we've made the investment organizationally to where, if that's not enough, if you still feel like, gosh, I want a little help, I know I want to build my own style. I'm just not 100% confident. Kind of as I mentioned in the very beginning slides, we set it up so that there is a wingman or a wingwoman. And we do work with the sales organization, hop on a call, and we're as involved as they want or as not involved as they want. If they want us to give the whole presentation and they just kind of throw in comments, we've done that. Or, you know, if they want to lead most of it, we kind of just interject the research. We've done that. Usually what I found is if you do that and you build the confidence of the organization, it doesn't take more than maybe one, I'd say in most cases, one, you know, confidence building experience before most people can just do it on their own.
That's great. Well, I think we have time for one more, and I think this one will be a quick one, which is in doing your training materials, did you get an outside agency or did you do them internally?
If you have the resources to get an outside agency to do it, and you know your organization is confident that the quality will be there, I definitely recommend it. I think that's a valuable investment. It will save you probably a lot of time. We did everything internally, and one of the reasons why I think we did most things internally, and maybe now at our level of maturity we could probably outsource some of it, but initially we did things internally because we didn't know what we were doing. And that's part of the reason why, you know, I think that this conversation is so important. Is I hope that you gained a couple of key ideas, thoughts, or things that you can share with you know, or your organization and your decision makers that will put you ahead of where we were when we started this, where we really felt like we were on a journey, you know, into the wilderness for the first time. We did a lot of our stuff initially because we were experimenting. But yeah, it's definitely, you're able to do it. It's not something that's overwhelming by any means.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Peyton. So a quick note before we leave, another reminder just to pre-register for next month's webinar during the exit survey. We're really excited about this one because we're going to be joined by Mark Stiving, who is Chief Pricing Educator at Impact Pricing. And during the session, he's going to explore the ways that B2B businesses can maximize the impact of their value pricing strategies by mastering value conversations. We're really excited about this one, so make sure you pre-register. And that's it for us today. So thank you all for taking the time to join us, and a special thank you for Rick for taking the time to join us and share his experience. And from all of us here at Leverage Point, have a wonderful and safe rest of your week. Take care.